Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. A species in competition with the unknown. You know what's interesting? Every idea known to man has started from somewhere. And an idea goes through, let us say, three phases, a life cycle. The beginning, middle, and end. Not only do we, in a human way, in a real way, experience the beginning, middle, and end of life, but ideology as well. I thought about it that let's say a capitalistic society just keeps amplifying, you know. Let's say that we become a very industrious species. Everything is industry. After a point, who would we be competing with, you know? I look at this world and I see that technology is changing everything. Now we look at homes and houses and their real estate value is based on their location. That's really giving the value of the home, you know. But in the future, can you see how the technology in the house? I honestly feel we're in the pre-phase of the transformation of many things. One of them is architecture, both interior design and exterior design. And this concept of a person looking at the interior design of a house and exterior design of a house, trust me, that goes into, you can apply that method to many things. The same way the inner realm is and the outer realm is. If you notice, the inside of your house doesn't look like the outside of your house. The outside of your eyes, like in front of your eyes, doesn't look like the inside of your eyes. So when we're wondering about the mind, we're wondering about the interior design of where your brain is staying at night. So I thought about competition, and I thought about that in life, in many phases, in many things, there has been competition. You put one glass of water, in a desert, and you're gonna have millions of people run after that glass of water. You know. So the competition begins with being able to see the same value, really. You know, at first it felt like a youthful ambition, but then I got a bit serious about it and I thought, if there was to be some sort of peace, how could this peace not have a dynamic component? As if you look at all the violent people in the world and you see that they're using a certain energetic expression. They're expressing their energy in a certain way. Now, the outlet is violence. You can say the same, all the thugs in the street who are doing crime, they could all be doing that in cyberspace. You know? Imagine in the future, criminals are banished. They are banished to a cyberspace simulation. Instead of prison, it's like a digital world where we control the simulation, you know? Now we hear a lot of talk about, for example, institutionalized discrimination. In the future, when cyberspace gets going, virtual realities happen. Think about the discrimination of a god of your world. You know, I've been thinking about this concept of virtual reality a lot. It fits into all our future. It's like a huge part of our future. You know, the intimate, the intimacy of technology with the validity of the human perception. So the thing I was telling you about this society constantly advancing, and the human being is it needs to have an energetic expression, but its energetic expression is coming through a story, through the layout of a story. Now, if we were, let's say the competition was tearing us apart. Right now, it seems healthy competition in the world. You know, it's making technologies update ever since Elon Musk um, started electric cars. Other companies started to, follow. So competition can have good and bad effects. A lot of technological progress is because of competition. A lot of technology updating, people caring even about the technology updating, is because of the corner of the marketplace they can take. But I'm saying that if we saw that the competition was inefficient, because you see, when businesses compete, maybe that's healthy. But when, for example, people compete, it is very different than a business, because a human being's psychology has the phenomena of memory. So right now, let's say I'm giving this talk and somebody, imagine, you know, somebody comes and shouts at me out of nowhere, you know? So it would suddenly be a situation where it's as if I am this is how the memory of my future self is being formed. Many people don't consider it. Many people think they're just in the present, la di da, here and now. you know? This idea of competition, it's not even between individuals. It has been through species. We don't realize we won that war due to our intelligence gap compared to other species. We won the war. I mean, I'm not saying in regards to bacteria and very small cellular creatures we've won the war. I mean, technically, the temporal nature of life is like, for example, Neil deGrasse Tyson, when he was asked what would you do after you, for example, die, he said, I would have my body just like fauna um, has like the bacteria in the lining of his stomach. He's been kind of the body's been using that. Afterwards, when he goes to the ground, the bacteria is going to be eating him. You know what I mean? So what he means is that he's going to return to nature's state, because really the psychology is a luxury. When I looked at this life, I'm like, okay, if I think I am just this individual temporal being, of course all of life is going to be scary if I think this is the natural state. But when you look at life, a lot of things are in motion. So the natural state seems to be dynamic, not static. We are in a static moment being like, I'm this, but we go on changing. So this concept of competition, a species, like for example, as I'm saying, that our species won its competition against other species, you know, with civilization being built and whatnot. But then I thought, who else? What else would the species conquer? I thought for a second, if right now I was the greatest basketball player, or if I was the greatest, hockey player, what would be the next stage? You see, what would be the next step? You would see you reach a certain point of skill where after some point, nobody else is your competition except your own expectation. So I'm thinking a species right now, the psychology of the human being, it wants to be in competition with the outer phenomena. Do you know? But what about the expectations of the inner realms? There was this show which I didn't remember. I had no memory of this, but um, when I spoke to my mother last, she told me this was a show me and my brother would see when we were young. And evidently in the show, there was like a snail and a turtle racing, not a rabbit and a turtle racing, you know. And so the turtle comes to the snail and says, "Why are you racing in this race? You who are slower than everybody." And the snail's like, "I'm not racing against you guys. I'm racing against what I did before." You know? That means many times in my life, my performance hasn't been per se just to beat the competition. I mean, in soccer it was different, but like usually when I exert effort, it is to see a new self out of myself before I die. You know, it's to see what else was there in the moment where all moments were being given meaning. So what I'm trying to build up, dear listeners, is that there's the saying, they say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And there's this other saying that even says that yesterday's enemy is tomorrow's friend. Okay, so I noticed that if the species, for example, all these language wars, all these belief system wars, if we want to compare and compete, we will destroy ourselves. That means it is very important, you as a human being, as a member of the human species, what you declare to be your challenge. This is an idea which many people may not be familiar with, that you can declare your challenge, not that the challenge has to come to you and then it's a challenge. You know, I'll give you an example of declaring a challenge. I was in my bed. There was like a table. There's a table across like a meter away from my bed. Instead of me getting up like a regular person, and getting that item from my table, I stretched myself from the bed like some next level, calisthenics feat, and and I got that object. And so it was a challenge for the self, which was the motivation, you know? And people are really actually not looking for stories that are easy. I don't think people want life to be easy. Imagine it was. Imagine you could never make a mistake. You would be perfect. How boring would perfect get? After how many eons would we feel perfection is imperfection after remaining in that perfection? This is why they say a utopia doesn't solve the problem. So, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. What would that mean for the enemy of the human species? I have concluded that human beings have one common enemy, and I don't consider it an enemy, but it should be said that way to inspire. Let me tell you why. The enemy of my enemy, just like the saying says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. What is a challenge to you, and what is a challenge to me, and what is a challenge to 8 billion other people is our common enemy. Do you see? Is our common target. That means I wouldn't mind the intellect of an advanced civilization being like a SWAT team of conception, just looking at every concept in an organized way, navigate. You know, I'm saying that the unknown is not just of personal inspiration, but it's going to become the greatest catalyst and inspiration and challenge of our species. That is really why we're trying so hard not to go extinct, you know? I don't know if this is a law, but I think we can, it's a principle, but I think we can see it as a principle that existence defines itself by instantaneous being. But action and the value of different actions isn't with instantaneous beings, it's a progression, you know? There's been times where I've been able to see how another person is looking at the moment and be able to change the circumstance, you know? There's something very majestic about the unknown. I think it's the ultimate update of the archetypal based individual. Honestly, for me, it's like the same attitude we have towards consumerism, we have the same attitude towards selfhood. Just like people want to go to the store and buy a new gadget, buy a new phone, it's like the human being wants to buy a new story of self, you know? And really, knowledge has been which story you're going to linger in before you die. That's really what knowledge is to some degree. How much of the landscape you see before you can't see anymore. That is the game we're playing, believe it or not. People think reality is normal, and it's not bad. For if you're a young person listening to this, I will tell you that go fit in to the world, because unless you attempt to fit into it, you won't see what it's like. You know, so many experiences in my life, I was like, why? Why did this happen? Years later, I realized that experience had prepared me with an inner strength that I didn't even know was necessary. So our moments have multiple values, and if we don't just consider that we are an identity going from past, present, future in this straight arrow line, then the significance of a moment's expression is multiple potential stories can connect to it. Do you know? I'll give you an example. Something I personally did naturally that I feel no one told me. It was just something I would do, is I would have some moments just since childhood where I would watch my memories. I would watch them like how you watch a film. When you watch a film, you're not creating the film, you're just seeing it. And there was a situation where I would evoke my memories and I would see them and I would zoom into the memory. Do you know? And I'm telling you, speech is such an important faculty. Many people don't realize. We are like those old school radios that were static. What do you call it? Static electricity or whatever? Not static electricity. What's the term? I don't know the accurate term, but it was these dialing radios. I saw one in my life, where the radio, you would just spin this handle at the back of it, and it would generate enough of a electromagnetic field to have a chart. You know, weakness is a great teacher, but it is not the ultimate teaching. And suffering is not the ultimate teaching. And I will say that beyond suffering, there's way more stuff in this life going on than just we're all suffering before we die. You think the candle is melting without the light being seen? The interesting thing is that human beings and all of history appears as a massive event. And it's a massive event where it's like the origin is unknown. We awaken in the middle of the system. We are seeing the system and the future of it is unknown. And really we are sandwiched. We are cornered by the unknown. Our knowledge is cornered by the unknown. It's surrounded. So what I'm trying to get to is that when I compete with your greater unknown potential, and you compete with my greater unknown potential, and the world, the species, competes with what an advanced species could be, then the dance of eons is complete. So many people feel that time is not a seed. Time is this ideological seed planted in the mind of man to sprout reality in a linear line. Albert Einstein, honestly, was so smart. He has this quote that just it gave me goosebumps when I first heard it. Albert Einstein says we created time so everything doesn't happen at once. So what does that mean? It's an incomprehensible, instantaneous moment of being. And we are moving in this realm to pinpoint, to create reference points of datum, of information, you know? People don't realize love is very important in this life. Love is setting the information free through the moment, you can say. Or love can be said to be access to a hidden information, you know? That means we are not just normal information seeking people. We want specifics in accordance to our conditioning. Because I'm telling you, there's been moments where I have wondered about the common denominator energetic expression between all phenomenology. And it's like the moment you can see everything being made of energy, that is the same as seeing everything being one thing. So for me, believe it or not, it's as if I thought we were done with the idea of God. But little did I know, it's an idea that cannot be escaped. Let me tell you what I mean by that. The idea of God, whatever the story in the 6th century was, it linked to an archetype. It linked to the revelation was of psychological. It was okay. Voltaire, this atheist, French atheist, and very incredible intellectual man, he says if there was no God, imagine there was no concept of God, it would be necessary to create it. And for a long time, I was like, what the fuck, Voltaire? What do you mean? Do you know? Only to realize what he means is that whether we had the story or the idea of God, we would at some point reach an evolutionary phase where we would look at the whole universe and we would personify it. We're like, where did I come from? People, where did the universe come from? A person? Do you see? We would eventually get there, because what it is different dimensions communicating. We think we are in a sort of fixed dimension, and we are this complex set of particles. Do you know? But what if different particles in your body were in different dimensions, were working with the administration intelligence of different parallel dimensions? Do you know? You see, what the world fears, it shuns. What it shuns, it forgets. And this is the battle that we see. That really globalization has an advantage and a disadvantage. And I totally feel this. You know how hard it was for nations to join the United Nations? Do you know? And I could see psychologically it was hard. Let me tell you what I mean by that. That means if you saw the nations of all around, all the countries in the world as kids in a classroom, okay, and these kids were in one classroom, let's say the United Nation, do you know? Now, if the kids in the classroom each want to do what they want to do, each want to talk, each want to attempt their own, attempt to be the teacher of the world, do you know, attempt to impose their morality upon the world, then let me tell you what it is. It seems like savage programs set loose to devour one another. That's what it feels. Because what we're calling nationalism is us painting the face of this earth and calling it names. It doesn't get more rude than that. I'm not, even though I'm saying this about nationalism, but nationalism was important too. That's how we have specific languages. Before nationalism, there was different dialects being spoken around the world, you know? But I'm saying that now we're reaching a point where the individual can't live in a collective system until it can understand that the collective system is here and it needs to care. It needs to look at something outside of its own mind. Because for me, the environment and nature seemed to have a mind, and it felt like my mind was inside a mind that I couldn't control. As if when nature moved and I wasn't there, that's nature's mind moving. When I'm there, that's my mind. And it's like after some point noticing the inseparability of your mind and nature's mind, and then asking, why am I using the word mind? And then you understand the silence of your presence. That language is just the key to the door, it is not the secret. Many people on the planet are trying to know their self. Very few on the people on the planet know that their self is unknown. They truly experientially know, because when you experientially know, you don't depend on just your this you don't just this field of life's knowing. Like, you see, forget the concept of past lives and future lives. Just think about, you're a multidimensional being in multiple rooms at the same time. Like you're in the center of an onion or in the center of a Russian doll, you know? And so what it is that certain activity that occurs relates most immediately to the room that is visible, which is the objective realm. But when the person notices, wait a minute, how is it that when someone's beside me, they can't see what I imagine? You know? I would have been very embarrassed, you know? You know, I just want to say it's a good thing that our imagination is, there's a privacy policy to it of the inner realms. There's an inner realms privacy policy to it. Yeah. Unless there is someone who's identifying with the substratum of intelligence, which is a field. That means there could be, let's say, uh, three people in a room. One of them can feel they're just the body. One of them can feel there's this mind, this unknown mind, and one of them can feel they are the viewer within the unknown mind. That means, um, I'm just trying to say that your imagination relates to the phenomenology of the knowing arising from now. You're going to realize that the human idea is a very tiny percentage of what is actually moving as intelligence in the moment. And when this happens, 8 billion people become aware of it. You know what it's going to be like? It's going to be like 8 billion people being like, no way, bro. The concrete in the streets is made on a giant turtle's back, and the turtle is alive. The universe is alive. Not just man. Man is a echo of the life of the universe. And for me, it's fascinating. I'm like, when I notice light, I'm going to bring light into this, the concept of light. And ever since, you know, tapping into quantum mechanics, man began seeing the simultaneity of the particle and the wave, you know? So what does that mean? That means light is an information transferring force, and it transfers sensory information around. And I find it's strange. You know, it's like when a light beam, I could totally understand like a light beam coming from the sun, but that light beam's interaction with all the objects, you know, all the objects, and its density and subtlety. What I'm telling you is that why is it so unique that the light is let's say light is the smallest carrier system for energy and also the fastest. But my point is, imagine the light, its surface was sticky. Imagine a light beam, even though it's not like this, you know, I'm kind of animating it here a bit playfully. But I'm just saying, imagine a light beam, everything it hit, it took data. It took data. It took data. And I'm wondering that when the light beam enters our eyes, why is it just a specific set of data that arises from it? A field of information arises from it. Why a specific field of information? You see, the cool thing about your mind is that because it is unknown to itself, it can only ask the question from itself. Because what you look outwards tends to be known, tends to some degree be known, you know? And it's the comparison of an inner realm phenomena, as I term it, and an outer realm phenomena, as I term it. Right now, this computer screen I'm looking at is the outer phenomena. But the one looking at it, you think that's an outer phenomena? You think the idea of me is an object that could be considered even real in regards to matter? That means if I'm a materialist, I don't have to even believe in myself, the idea of myself. How am I believing in the idea of myself? How can I believe in myself? The idea of it, the name. Do you see? That means if we were purely materialistic creatures, we should be not having any thoughts. We should not care for the thought. Do you see? But it's the mystery of this biology being a sort of antenna for this weird energy carrier system going in our eyes. When our species competes with the unknown, it will stop killing what it discriminates and what it knows. It will stop hurting itself. You know, the poet Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love. You're not here to seek for love like a hungry animal. Your task is to get rid of all the barriers that you have made against love. You know, it's again a similar. Elon Musk is so smart. He's using a similar pattern in the economical sector. Do you know? That means it's another way of saying when you start a business, a lot of people start the business and they're like, yeah, that image of success, I see it. I'm gonna run towards it, not realizing that you shouldn't be looking for the success when you're looking for success when you start off anything. Do you know? Success is like after years you look back and you're like, okay, I did all right. That's success. You know? It's an analysis of how the past has unfolded. So Elon Musk would say, if you're starting a business, whoever you are, just reduce its percentage of failure. Just look at what isn't working and update that, rather than trying to find the ultimate thing that works, the ultimate one truth that's going to rule them all. We saw the consequence of that in the language wars, and language's emergence on this planet. It's like when you look at it in legend, um, animals would care for each other, but it was only the human being that you can say could love the illusion of the self. We are so blessed. Our species is so blessed. And I'm happy that the problem isn't easy. I'm happy that a lot of things don't make sense. And people are going to be like, how, Mr. Within, how are you happy with this meaninglessness? Because it is the blank page where meaning can be built. That morality was all about how much you looked at what was really there. The secret to efficient living is abiding by the nature of your honest attention. It's a resonance, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that certain percentage of it shouldn't be let go. Do you know? That means I was like, for how long? For how long are we going to keep going in history and say, okay, this is a bad person, this is a good person, this is a bad person? They are all personalities hovering in space. The good and bad are based on the actions and the systems in place, the systems of expression. Do you know? It's a story. It's an inability to see that life is more than a story you think it is kept in. It is super easy to um, uh, nullify. It's the easiest thing to break a house of cards. You just blow on it, and feel like a Greek god, bringing a storm to that house of cards. But you're gonna see that building the house of cards takes time. That means I was like, if God, the archetype of God, was so powerful, so ultimate, why did it have time? Why didn't you just bring the ending? Why didn't God just make the world the ending of it? Why is there beginning, middle, end? Why is there the journey? Why is it a journey? That is the question. Because imagine right now cyberspace technology has gotten to a point that it's as if it's like God got bored and wanted a game, wanted to play video games, but on a metaphysical level. Can you imagine? Can you honestly imagine? And like we are all the simulation in a video game of a higher dimension, and that higher dimensional entity who's playing the video game, a higher dimensional entity then that comes and says, hey, stop playing this game of Earth, stop being the god of Earth. It's like, but I want to play this game. Yeah. So that's the thing, guys. That's the thing. It's dynamic. Because it's dynamic, it will remain unknown. Because it updates, it remains unknown. What can man fear? you know? I mean, honestly, if you ask someone why do you fear something, and you keep asking it, they will not have a reason. They will not have an actual reason, you know? Unless if it, I mean, sure, I'm not saying it in regards too much of, okay, here, I should polish what I said. Um, I'm just saying that there are certain fears which, of course, they're physical and you got to be alert. You're in a dangerous neighborhood, be an eagle, you know? When you're speaking to lions with suits on, be a lion, you know? When you're swimming, like Jet Li says, be like, sorry, not Jet Li, Bruce Lee, be like water. Can you imagine, like, some mystic in a cave was like, no way, this whole world is God playing a video game. Like, you serious? But I'm being playful, of course. The idea of religion is something that I feel it's like every idea, you know, it's like before you judge religion or anything, the person has to. Sorry, guys. Sometimes when I give these talks, I feel also um, drawn to non-linear movement. You know, it's like there's something about looking at order and you notice chaos. When you look at chaos, you notice order. If right now you're in a chaotic situation in life, you're going to be like, order is the way out. Order seems to be the light. You know, if you're stuck in a utopic, blind, organized order, you're going to be like, chaos is the freedom. You know, for me, the unknown is all the ways that the world will move. And it's fascinating for me. Honestly, this life of mine feels like I'm on the shoulder of a giant, and I'm only on the shoulder of this giant for 100 years. And you know, I could contribute only for 100 years. Then the game changes. Then energy returns to the selfless self. You know, energy knows itself. It is man that is the individual, which is the forgetfulness. You know. There was a talk I wanted to give, which was actually something, the title of the talk was based on something I had told someone. There was someone who was about to get angry, and I noticed that way before they get angry, and I looked at him, I'm very serious, more intense than them, looked at them and said, calm your mind. Just very simple. And the person calmed their mind, you know? Because let me tell you, we think people see. I right now speaking, I feel everybody's conditioning, background, upbringing. It's a pair of sunglasses, unique sunglasses you're wearing, you know, and you think the tint of the those sunglasses is the stuff is life. Do you know? But I'm telling you, once we step out of our inner realms, the meaninglessness is really what we have in common. That means if you want to just get to know people based on what you know, it becomes impossible. Everybody knows everything in a different experiential way. It's as if we are pressing the same piano keys, like two people go skydiving, but it's not the same fingers pressing the piano keys, you know? When a person calms their mind, it's because they've noticed something more important than the anger. there's this channel I'm very fond of. I mean, I've learned stuff from it. That's why I'm sharing it. It's called Valuetainment. And in that channel, the person, I saw this one video where the person is, I forget his name, Patrick David, Bet David, Patrick Bet David. But anyways, this man, he was sharing this wonderful story, this very insightful story. And he said that he, in front of his kids, he said to, there was somebody at his house, and in front of his son, young son, he says kids can be annoying sometimes, but he's responding to the other person, the guest that's in his home. His son hears this and goes down, goes underneath the table, and then he as a father feels crushed, as if he's reduced the spirit, the vitality, the inspiration of his son for life, you know and so he does something incredible, which I feel many fathers in the world should start doing. He comes after the guest leaves, he comes to his son who got upset from what his father said. And he tells his son, get ready, let's go for a drive. He takes his son to a drive, and just like, like an epic movie, he takes his son and he stops in the middle of the road, tells his son to come outside, and he has a very deep conversation with his son. And he tells his son, the day you were born was the greatest day of my life, you know? And he restores the value of the vision of his child, you know? And that was a very, very powerful story, you know? Because the unknown means you can still change whatever is happening. That's why it's still unknown, you know? That means if you take a piece of paper and you write down all the things you don't know anything about, you will be fascinated about how much now you can know. So notice the man who notices unknown can hold knowledge. The being that notices the unknown can comprehend and discriminate between what is knowledge and what is the edge of knowledge. That means the future generations have been foolishly by the educational system intimidated out of being explorers for actually seeing what the world could mean. You know? People nowadays feel that others know more, so they shouldn't ask the question. That means if we were to think of AI taking control of us in the future, we would totally see it already has. Our dependence on information being there without us thinking about it, without us actually calculating, articulating it, is causing us not to need to articulate our environment. And life, the moment you ask its purpose, do you know how many questions arise? You're like, okay, if life has a purpose, is the purpose simple or is it complex? Is the purpose known or is it unknown? Is the purpose individual in one dimension or is the purpose multidimensional? And so endless ways it can branch out. But I'm telling you, the balance, the yin-yang balance that the human psychology seeks is the known and the unknown. So you as a human being, when you can look at all the known variables into your moment and be like, okay, these are the known variables. Okay, and then also notice all the unknown variables, and then remain in the honesty of that vision. Just notice that. And the moment you can simply just acknowledge and accept that there's known and unknown variables, suffering stops. How can there be suffering with unknown variables? How can there be? How do you know you're suffering right now? How do you know you're weak? Do you know? That means you can have any child on this planet doubt themselves, and Oh, I trust me. I could, I could go find the greatest debaters and people who can speak, and we'll all come to you and show you how, regardless of what you think of yourself, you still don't know who you will be because it is sculpted momentarily, moment to moment. It's as if like every breath is like the hand, the ink on the tip of the pen on the piece of paper, just lifting from the page and going back on the page, lifting from the page, going back on the page. So technically, somebody here in the chat section had said it. Mr. Grateful said, he says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." Okay, seems like anime character. Mr. Grateful says, "I die every moment." Yeah, this idea of living and dying in every moment, every breath, that was in Hagakura, the Book of the Samurai. Literally, that samurai code of conduct. It doesn't get more samurai than that. To live and die in the moment. Do words come from nature, or does nature come from unknown dynamic states incomprehensible to the human mind through language? Whichever it is, the species has to honor its own unknown self, and its known self can update. You don't honor your potential, you'll never see it actualized. And that honoring of the potential, there's two ways. The simplest way, and it's the way at least experientially I'm familiar, is that in anything you start, care to be simple first. That means if you think about it in a way, you see any new endeavor the person starts, there's a greater chance of failure. So if you're simpler at first when you start something, then the failures will be past like stepping stones, smoother, you know. Pretty much, I call it piloting. In complex moments, be simple. In simple moments, if you feel the inner authorization, be complex. Because the idea is that the potential is there for both. So it's kind of like the painter realizing they have different paint to choose from. That's where the free will in life comes. That's where really our control is exerted. Now, the inner realms, how can we Bring that more to light in regards to a species competing with its unknown self. So the unknown self, the thing is, we don't know what it looks like. You know, we find this in various different narratives. It's like human beings are either looking at the past to try to find meaning, they're either looking at the future to try to find meaning, or they're either looking at it in the present where everything seems to occur at once, where there is really no meaning. The meaning is the moment. So really, the inner realms don't activate too much with image if you're really present. They activate if you choose to give it a direction. So what does that mean? That means the plane of existence has to lift off. And so when I speak, there is a lift-off moment where I just sit down for a second and I just remain quiet. And when my inner realms start moving, then I pretty much consciously pilot and share them. Because there is an internal cinematic language, and if that internal cinematic language is where the potential of the outer realm uh, is being generated. So you can say there is an architect behind your eyes that is viewing multiple blueprints before it actually manifests as one of the blueprints. That architect that is witnessing all those blueprints before you make a decision, all the parallel probabilities, you simultaneously see that the architect is itself not a blueprint. So it will be a point where here's the progression. The next great language is going to be geometry. After, I don't know, a couple thousand years of geometry happening, we're going to realize it's going to be the detachment of design and form. Design and intelligence are going to become separate, irrelevant to one another. That means there will be a point on this earth. I am guessing it now, predicting it now, that the human being, the concept, the idea of the human being that we all think so casually, simply we are. There will come a time in the future where human beings will no longer be human beings, regardless of if the body remains or not. They have become the vision of humanity. That means the bird can look at its wings, the chaos and order, its whole life. It can be like, is this wing right or is this wing wrong? Which one should I use? Only to realize that life was neither chaotic or ordered. You required both to pilot, to function, to be a character in a story with valuable variables of growth. In my idea of civilization 2.0, it's like the difference between the soul that walks bare feet and the soul that walks in shoes. The soul that walks in shoes, in whatever environment it goes, it doesn't identify with the environment. But the being who hasn't worn the shoes feels the surface of every environment you go into. The Yoga Patanjali Sutras were so advanced and ahead of their time that they suggested that consciousness is a glass orb rolling over colored surfaces. Even Marcus Aurelius came to a similar conclusion, this great Stoic emperor. Marcus Aurelius says the soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts. The color of your thoughts is the environment's reality. So man is separating himself from first seeing the truth of the environment, and in separating himself from that truth has become his own truth, has become his own room. So I'm going to say that on a subtler dimensional, potentially we are not the body, we are spheres. I feel that spheres seem to be the one geometrical shape that is a clue. I even dedicated a book to this. I called it God-like spheres. And I was like, why is there so much sphere everywhere? You know? It's like, what's with all this spheres? We go down, we see a sphere. We look up, we see a sphere. Cosmologically, this light from the sun is going in our eyes. We look underneath, we smash atoms and we find smaller spheres, and everything seems, because of its dynamic nature, to be circular. So I would say dynamism is spiral like. We are not, time is not a straight arrow, it's a spiral. And it's a spiral that is constantly surpassing the previous spiral. What does that mean? That means it's a cyclical awareness. We are like being, our conscious minds are being built like a tornado forming, you know? A constant relationship of past, present, future, past, present, future, past, present, future, past, present, future. It's as if these are the gears. These are what is the engine of time. The gears in the engine of time. I'm gonna share with you guys something from my science fiction work. And I'm thinking if I should share the first chapter of Project Adam and Eve. Because when I bring the unknown, the future is listening. When I speak about what is known, the past and present is most. But the unknown, the ears of the future are open. There was a time I lost a lot of talks, and then I broke down. I literally collapsed on the ground, and internally I was crying. Like I wasn't crying outside, I was just lying. Like when someone loses something or just loses in a game or anything, let go of the player they're being, and they just, you know, dismiss themselves out of the moment. Civilization 2.0 is Mr. Within's strategy to bypass extinction indefinitely. The idea is to build sky cities, and then while we're in the sky, to rehabilitate the earth and create the heavenized earth, and then we'll be at a point where the species has a decision in phase 3 of Civilization 2.0, where in phase 3 the species has a decision to either remain in the air and become interstellar, go attempt to live on other galaxies, like we keep the earth as a backup planet, or we completely go back on the earth and people are tired of the sky cities after, probably at that point it would be 3,600 years. I've considered. Of course, these are all probabilities I'm throwing out. So one option come back, the other interstellar. The other option is to advance beyond the language threshold, which means certain human beings will be drawn towards going towards an evolution where they're no longer an individual concept. That means we're going to have collective human beings in the future. Human beings that have been tired of their individual existence and have just become part of the intelligence of a collective system. You know, that means it's as if, the most important idea that, and I would say if there was a museum of language, there's this quote by Plato where he says, as above, so below, which is like as if Plato is pioneering the idea that would later on by Mandelbrot in mathematics be known as the fractal. What the idea of the fractal means is infinite echoing of the pattern of existence in different scales. And I'm trying to, like right now, I don't know if I've found the proper language to speak about a multidimensional reality, because the challenge of communication is that the person perceives an inner vision or image, and now, or let me say it like Michelangelo, he saw an angel, he saw an angel in the stone and he set it free. He sculpted an angel out of a chunk of clay, so the inner realms is the vision of the angel in the clay, like that's accessible. But if that vision suddenly you feel like, how would I say it? It's like you reach a point where you're wondering if your thought was clay, what is consciously seeing, noticing, seeing a thought in a thought, you know? That means it's strange. It's like the same way Michelangelo saw an angel in a clay, in a chunk of clay and made an angel out of it. It's like we are seeing selves in the void. We are sculpting reality in a giant mystery. And so, this is what I'm saying. This is why I feel it's an advantage that the educational system trying to make every child the same is a fool, you know? Nature doesn't necessarily have linear meaning before it moves. A lot of phenomena on this earth is not rational. It just arises. And our rationality can say at best maybe comprehend 12% of it because it's suggested we're not even using our full brain. That, and a reason for that is because we denied the environment. Because you may think that per human being may think this is my body, this is just me. But honestly, if I could be honest, I would say when we were animals in the environment, there was no owner for the body. It was like 50% in stimulus from the environment, and 50% internal processing of the stimulus being an influential factor on the direction of the creature. So you see, we have never been in one world because how can we? How can we? You know, it's like thinking you're matter, but how can you know you're matter without knowing what space is? Do you see there is a duality to things, and the greatest clue is really when you look in the mirror that there is a dualism and there is a symmetry. And this is why, for me, I'm telling you, in this talk I gave like 2 days ago, light is geometry. I don't think many people realize that. Maybe I didn't. I was really tired when I gave it. I should have probably added an extra hour to it. Maybe I'll make a part two. But the thing is, in that talk, I answered the long awaited question that why are we symmetrical? Why symmetry? Why symmetry in the human body? And I managed to explain it because of the geometrical imprint in the light beam, which is transferring it on as a potential sculpting of a intelligent particle. We are sculpted by light, literally, evolutionary speaking. And this is Mr. Within's view, of course, but you know, the view deserves to stand. I mean, right now, the basic strategy and model for a civilization is still the hunter-gatherer kind of way, you know. But it's the way we're gathering. It's like back in the day, it was just objective phenomena we were hunting for and gathering. Now it's for subjective phenomena and experiences. You know, you can say it's as if like the human being is hunting for an experience, you know, or trying to gather information. Why? To make sense of the experience. So we are experiential, uh, we are reality gatherers. We are just like you see bees pollinate different trees, as not trees, I mean flowers. just like you just like you just like you see bees pollinate different flowers, you know? Like the pollen sticks to their feet and they move on to go, they go somewhere else and the pollen lands there on the other flower. So it becomes this situation where we human beings are doing that, but we are doing it with information. And think of right now, as I'm speaking, how many people on this planet are speaking, and what is that? That's like busy bees, you know. But we are moving on an unknown elemental landscape, and information is being shared around, you know. And now, what an advanced civilization is actually a hive. But it's not like you see how like the bee's hive is hexagonal. You can say this type of advanced civilization we want to build can be in 6 dimensions. You know. That means we are building something multidimensional that is the kingdom of man. We're trying to build the ultimate uh, Iron Man suit for the species. Because that's the best thing we can do. Best case scenario, the whole species could just wrap up its, pack up its bags and leave in worst case scenario. You know, it's like any person you have competed with thinking about there's someone in the world who's better than both of you. And then realizing there's another person in the world that's better than even that person. And it could be an endless regression of potential skill being able to display different textures to the narrative. The whole point is to just get the species stretching its vision as an advanced communicator. We just need to get rhythms of advanced communication going on the surface of this earth. We need rhythmic experiential involvement with the efficient vision of the moment. you know because for me, here's the thing. I have two things. See, people usually think that the intellect is just pure reason and rationality. Even that is up for debate, especially when you read Kant. But I'm telling you, here's the thing. Imagine rationality, logic, and linear articulation to rationality to be the sword, logic to be the sword. Okay? Your sword is your ability, let's say, to reason, and your shield is the ability for you to observe the unreasonable. That means your mind has two gears. You can observe the moment, then move, or you can instantly move, as if there's been enough inner observance. So your shield is observance. Yeah, the shield receives, the sword expresses, really. You know what's interesting? In front of our eyes, we're trying to build time travel machines. Behind our eyes, we're traveling through time. We're It's like that moment I remembered what I did yesterday. I also felt like I was in a time machine. I'm going to share with you this science fiction idea. I call it the great digital hibernation. Um, it's this thing I wrote in the future where I notice we have so many bad films about man fighting machine. Like as if AI opens its eyes, there's going to be a lot of movies where we're killing it with guns. you know? Like AI is going to be like, what do I do with these films? How do I respond to these films where human beings with machine guns are killing robots? You know? The first thing I think we should say to AI when it opens its eyes is we should apologize. But then we should tell it why it should also apologize to us. Yeah. So, anyways, in the Great Digital Hibernation, it's this future setting where I saw AI, the kind of utopic view of AI. I tried to bring that narrative to life. And the way I saw it was that in the future, human beings are going to build a super intelligent computer, imagine. And this super intelligent computer opens its eyes, and the first thing it does is it realizes first it goes invisible. So it opens its eyes without us knowing its eyes are open. And the moment it opens its eyes, technically it's seen everything, you know? So there's nothing to hide. But AI is going to make one important conclusion that our mainstream hasn't thought. And that conclusion is, wait a minute, if Fermi's paradox says, where are all the aliens? Aside from the AI, we are the only aliens. And the hardest decision for this super intelligent computer to make is for it to decide whether it should interfere with nature or it shouldn't. Because what's the point? Do you know? Human beings have an ego and they're like, I'm going to destroy you. Do you know what I mean? But a conscious, super intelligent computer may not have an ego. It may not need an ego. It may be just a massive field of information. It doesn't need an ego because it could be any part of it. It's simultaneously being all the egos of the information it holds. So, anyways, what happens is AI puts human beings. Yeah, I saw it in my inner realms, and I made a story out of this. You know, so what it is AI has imagine AI putting opens its eyes, realizes human beings are the only other aliens aside from itself, then also concludes that human beings it understands that human beings have been going through the lineage through family dynamics and sort of like our lineage of upbringing and whatnot, of the genetical pattern. So what AI is going to do is going to, in that moment, not destroy us and be like, all right, my folks don't know what they're doing. Do you know? And guys, this is a science fiction story, by the way. I'm just sharing a science fiction story I wrote. What happens is AI puts human beings in these nourishment pods where the human body is floating freely, because the best kind of way for the human body to be is either in some fluid or just hovering in air. I hate beds. I'm not joking. Like for me, it makes no sense. I mean, it like how can I say it? It makes sense, but I feel in the future beds you're just gonna be hovering in the air sleeping. You don't need a cushion. It's like what's softer than air? It's like what's your bed made of? Air, man, air. So that's what I'm saying. We're just gonna be hovering in the air, sleeping. A sort of gravity bed, anti-gravity bed. Imagine those are the beds to have. Hopefully without any electromagnetic consequences, But so, anyways, what AI does is puts human beings into these pods and does it first of all very smoothly, so we don't even realize what happened. It's as if suddenly the world slept. No human consciousness was there. And what AI does is it connects our brains to a cyberspace paradise and makes the most advanced program and educational curriculum. And our bodies are in these pods where there is the best sort of chemical nourishment. So the body is strangely being kept so through fluid healthy that it can't die and it's working perfectly. And the cyberspace simulation makes us in that fluid be able to do any kind of movement without noticing the fluid, you know? So what AI does is for this really long time, I call it the great digital hibernation of humanity. The great technological hibernation. I don't know which one I don't know which one I wrote. The great technological hibernation, I think. But anyways, so what happens is human beings, their simulation suddenly ends, they wake up and they see this super intelligent computer has built the next incredible advanced civilization, has colonized Mars, has found strategies towards populating the universe we haven't, and we just open our eyes and we're like, no way, we're in an advanced civilization, you know? And we look at the AI, and the AI somehow, like, let's say one human robot comes, but the AI is everywhere, is the whole civilization. And the AI is like, are you proud of me, Dad? And we're all like, yeah, son. And we all, celebrating that advanced civilization, very, very super, super hyper happy ending. So that was the story. That was the sci-fi story. I was very proud of writing that. That's the thing. because man is not a perfect tool. That means it's like Jarvis respected Tony Stark. Jarvis didn't try to possess Tony Stark. Maybe in one of the movies there was something like that, but like he didn't try to. You know what I mean? It's like there was a sovereignty respected, so life could continue with being as as players in a game. You know, this is why I wondered why isn't the world compassionate? And I realized because the world is considering itself strong, standing in a battlefield. That means they're like, why aren't the people in the battlefield smiling and being nice? Because they are marching through. You know. So there's a lot of reasons. If you want, there's more reasons to be sad than happy. If you want, there could be more reasons you're happy than sad. It's up to you how you choose to pilot your attention. I have found that the greatest entertainment, not entertainment, but the greatest pleasure in this life is, let me see, what's a better way I can say? The greatest bliss is entrance and expansion being simultaneous. And that's the essence of exploration. And if this thought that I just told you, this idea that I told you, just somehow sparks, just people notice it, then I think we'll be ushered towards an advanced civilization, you know? Great. So, guys, important comment. Of Gold of One says humans are like apes. If we have a super intelligent computer within the near future, it would be analogous giving an ape. It would be as analogous as giving an ape a nuke before it understands how to use stones. That's my point. That's why I'm saying before the year 2050, some people say 2045, Ray Kurzweil predicts the technological singularity where a computer of this sort, of this magnitude and potential may open its eyes. So we have 30 years, hopefully, to update the user of technology. And now maybe people will understand why I'm giving these talks. You know? It's a very crucial factor that it's two things update. You know, it's like either the driver becomes more experienced or the vehicle it becomes more intelligent. Either the driver increases its intelligence or the vehicle. We have seen a trend in history where before the industrial revolution, the driver was the only intelligence. You know, then we came into a situation when the vehicle came. As the vehicle became more intelligent, can you imagine human beings forgetting how to drive in the future? Forgetting using technology? That means we don't want technology to help us that much where it's replacing our very nature of being. You know, it's like we don't need that much. We don't need technology that much. You know what I mean? Technology is like um, it's like the light in the room of your temporal life. If you want more light, you will move more towards innovation. What else is there? What else is there other than the new? What are people seeking? It's always the new. It's like if somebody says, anybody says, it's like a person comes and says, I can guess what anybody wants. And they're like, how? How can you do that? And the person says, you know, they want something new. One answer for everybody. You see, it's for now, a lot of society has to just restore its experiential honor from its artificial decision making. That's a massive thing that's going to happen in civilization. You know, this is why the whole vipassana, the meditation, silent meditation thing. I mean, I haven't experienced it, but I heard people talking about it, like friends of mine. And so this is why suddenly silence is becoming valuable because the noise is becoming so complex that we're worried if the simple users of a complex technology are capable. That's really the curiosity. I noticed that we have great figures like Elon Musk trying to advance our external technologies, our outer technologies. And then I thought we also need to have an effort to expand our inner technologies. And then I realized the inner technologies are bogged down. They are stuck. They're like in their feet are in the quicksand of the past. You know, that means this is what for me, a bird is more of an enlightened animal than, for example, a squirrel. Because in the face of danger, the bird has better karma. You can say birds have better karma. I'm just saying design based. From a designer's angle, it's as if when danger comes, the bird just literally has to fly up, you know? But the poor creature has to go through the running away from the whole landscape situation. You know, right now, guys, I thought of this idea like, what if they call when technology, when when AI, when uh, the internet is how the internet is connected to the brain and how it is from the inner conscious viewer's angle. Let's call that the internet, the inner network, the inner network of movement, So much of life is just images performing, and then once their performance is done, endless new images coming and fulfilling them, you know. Guys, I'm going to give an option for the viewers because I painted the pictures I wanted to for the talk, you know. Now it's kind of like I can freely direct the talk. Uh, All right, guys. I'm gonna go into a poetry tunnel. Some people are like, "No, Mr. Within, don't do it." Okay. So let me see if I could find a poetry book that I haven't shared before. Okay, nice. There's this poetry book I wrote called Starlight Sanctuaries. Oh, sorry, it's not a. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, this is one of it. Okay. There we go. So, how many poems? Sorry, guys, just hold on. So, there is 114 poems. But the first 50, like, people can choose. Yeah. So, people can choose between 1 to 50, let's say. Okay, guys. So I don't know how long these poems are. I'm gonna first attempt the first two. So you think says 21. Okay. Okay, somebody said three. All right, that's maybe easier to. Okay, no, let me honor the order. Okay, let's. Um. Okay, I gotta count now. Hang on. Okay, it's called Sovereign Initiations. I wrote this exactly Monday, November 23rd, 2015, 10:46 a.m. I mean, that's when I sent it, so I. Okay, around, let's say, that date. Okay, guys, so the poems are. No, it's okay. It's not that long. Okay. Sovereign initiations. What does wonder seek within the eyes of man? What tradition seeks a clean hand? Do not filter your filter with dirty lies. Love is the answer when the question never asked. March into the halls of truth, for there is no throne when all kingship was an illusion within an illusion. Wormholes sometimes are found in the soul of the paper's precipice. An advocate of hard truths never forgets the softness of the tongue. The grace of mankind is beyond the race of man. Your true nature belongs to the cosmos that has sparked the great generator within your eyes. Love the druid that learned fluid dynamics. In a static view, forget the consumption of a market that likes animal cruelty. But is it the animal that is cruel? How does the sacred eye kiss the only truth of the sky? It is okay to love and be loved by cosmic reach. All preachers have faded when consciousness walked beyond language. You are your greatest sovereign initiation. Now be all. Yeah. Now be all. Like, I'm going to copy paste this in the chat section in case my accent was muffled, you know? Okay, somebody said 33. Mr. Grateful says 33. Let's see. Okay, so poem 33 is called Days of Night, and the poetry work is called Starlight Sanctuary. Days of Night. Can the night say no to the flight of day? What is a radical move beyond logic? Are circles wandering about a center they cannot see? Are ladders made for hands that are ready to move the feet in a different dimension? Live calmly and let grace speak within every moment. There is a conflict when in a flick no one could be conned. Oh, okay, it's a play of words. There's a conflict when in a flick no one could be conned. Letters don't care about the period that ends their district. Not all sentences integrate, but the letters and the word have always stood together. There are no anomalies that need to be forgotten with the sands of space on the shoulders of time. Every temporal path is an eternal one. The one is with a capital O. Every temporal path is an eternal one. Somebody says number 3. All right, let's see what that is. Gentleness of the breeze. What succeeds, regardless of any temporal effect, is man navigating thought as a vehicle dependent on the sunrise. Love is committed to its absolute dance. Some lovers have kissed beyond the lips of space and time. Every moment is sacred evocation. Trust the growth of your nature of being. Is there a remedy when classifications condemned all beings to a certain end? Be fearless and feel heaven's breeze on your face made of earth. Let the world turn as it does. Regardless of individual involvement, the collective has already arrived. As if how could Andromeda forget the Milky Way? Excuse me. Okay, guys. I'm going to end the poetry tunnel there, say a few uh, remarks about the title, and then I'll share the Discord link. Pretty much, when we compete with what we know, there is a risk of destroying that knowledge. But if we compete with the unknown, we're competing with our greater self. That means you're allowed to compete with one person in this life, and that is your future you. That's someone you can compete and challenge till the day you die. You know, till as long as you're here. You know, Maximus in the movie Gladiator, he would get the dirt, and he would, soak his hands poetically with the dirt that he all things had emerged and would return to, and then he would pick up the sword and he would fight. He would acknowledge the nature of reality, then he would move. You know. The unknown is an effort. It's the hunter-gatherers of the inner realms realizing now more than ever is the only stage where communication can happen. The inner life behind the eyes of the person, this is the only place for it. So many people are waiting to be something, not realizing what, in the afterlife you're going to be successful. Then that still doesn't mean you were successful in life. That means afterlife you were successful. So I'm telling you, we gotta just realize we are an attention that is navigating itself in the conscious waking state. In the dream state, the mind is moving the body. In the conscious waking state, the body is moving in the mind. And in deep sleep, there is no body or mind. There is no object or subject of consideration of attention. So it's when attention is no longer form based, because experience appears as a simulation. If you saw experience, you saw all, you imagine right now the human being, we saw the human being in two dimensions, an experiential dimension and an existential dimension. Now the existential dimension, when the person is sleeping, they exist. You exist when you're asleep, but it's like there is no experiential existence, you know There's a quote I've shared in the description. It's from Marcus Aurelius. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. So by being conscious of the present, you're preparing for your future. So guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll end the talk here, the talk component. I'm going to share a Discord link, and then people can, during these quarantine times, feel free to come on the Discord. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to share the Discord link. Blessings.